Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome everybody to another episode of the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. As usual, we've got another wonderful show lined up. As a matter of fact, I think we've had a lot of people looking forward to today's show. We're going to be speaking with Suzanne Glover in just a few moments. And today's show is going to be all about overcoming negative thinking and how we can utilize meditation and other tools to get rid of that nasty stuff going on in our brains. Anyway, but before we get started, I want to introduce and welcome our assistant producer here at the Just Bernard Show. Treva Williams is joining us live from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Treva, are you freezing or what?
Nope, my apartment's nice and warm.
Oh, you got it all nice and crispy, huh? How are you doing this week?
Good.
Everything is well in Winnipeg, I see.
Yeah.
I think you sent over our snowstorm that we have here today, so I'm blaming you. They're calling for up to, I think, 6 inches. Meanwhile, we've barely gotten a half an inch today. But anyway, so I just want everybody to know that Treva will be in the chat room, keeping an eye out for any questions you might have for myself or Suzanne during the broadcast. Feel free to ask questions during this very special live broadcast. Besides that, I just wanted to, I always like to talk about something that's in the news right now, and I just saw something that was really disheartening. I opened up my email, and I got a letter. I forgot who it was from, but I got a letter from one of the many organizations that we're affiliated with at the Global Illumination Council. And it seems they have already started doing the arrests in Russia over the Olympics. Apparently, there was someone carrying the whole torch running thing, and some guy waved a rainbow flag, and they literally jumped him and arrested him. That's really sad. That's really sad, and I'm very sad to hear that this is happening here in the 21st century, that people actually care about such matters. It's a sad place to be, and it's also a very sad place to be if you're gay in Russia. So as far as human rights are concerned, I wish them all the best. I hope that we do a very powerful boycott of this Olympics. I'm seeing that many organizations have boycotted it. The Global Illumination Council has been boycotting the Olympics now since our inception due to human rights violations, whether it be LGBT or slave labor or the right to free speech. Most of the places that the Olympics end up at, sadly, are in countries that violate international law dealing with human rights. And unfortunately, today's actions is very, it's the same old when it comes to the Olympic Committee. It's very profitable, and they really could care about human rights, as Putin has shown. He is very much against the freedom to express anything other than the heterosexual paradigm. But it's not like that. That's not what the world is about. The world is about individuals being themselves, expressing themselves, and becoming empowered. And we're going to be talking all about that in just a moment. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest today, Suzanne Glover. Suzanne Glover is a personal development professional who is committed to helping people become their best. Her life purpose is to use her gifts of intuition and ability to create a safe, non-judgmental environment, whether through writing or in person, to encourage and inspire people to stretch their comfort zones, tap into their strength to overcome the challenge, and thus feel the power, spirit, and beautiful energy of accomplishment, which builds greater self-esteem, confidence, and self-sufficiency. Suzanne is an author, an entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, a hypnotherapist, an actress. In her work, she combines many aspects of all of these endeavors to come up with a unique way of helping people. And we are so honored to welcome Suzanne Glover to the show today. Welcome, Suzanne. How are you?
I'm great, Bernard. Thank you so much for having me on board today.
We're thrilled, and as I read your bio, I'm like, she sounds like one of our board members at the Global Illumination Council. I love it. I love it. Our messages align beautifully. I love this. And again, nothing happens by mistake. I think it's all about synchronicity. So I feel today is another syncretic outcome coming to fruition. So, Suzanne, I want to again welcome you. And today's show, we decided we were going to talk about overcoming negative thinking and how we can use meditation and other tools. What is it? And I'm bringing up the description that we used for the show because one of the first things I noticed when I first posted it. Of course, there's always those few people that say, "Oh, well, then you're ignoring life if you're only thinking positive," or "Oh, that's how the Illuminati will control your brain if you're always thinking positive, ignoring the contrast and whatnot." I love what you said in the description that it's usually people that don't know how to think positive that react in this manner. And why is it so scary for people to allow themselves to be positive?
Okay, well, first off, that's a great question, Bernard.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is, when you're talking about being positive, you want to really realize that change is possible. That's really what staying positive is all about. And once you start understanding that change is possible, you start moving past the self-doubts that keep you in that negative place, and you start achieving more self-acceptance, and it spirals. Let me tell you about my own experience. When I got my wake-up call, I had a wake-up call just like everyone else. I was wondering if positive thinking would work and all that stuff, right? Well, my wake-up call was, think about this. How many decisions have you made in your life because someone told you should do something, Bernard?
Way too many.
Way too many. You should do something. The old to get along routine. Well, I was told I should be a model. So what did I do? I became a model because, like most of you, I know this sounds familiar. I always did what I was told.
Yep.
Yeah. So I may have looked at like a model on the outside, but my inner talk, my self-talk, my negative feelings about myself inside were very bad. No matter how much positive thinking I would have practiced at the time or could have practiced at the time, it wasn't going to get me anywhere, okay? Because I did not have the confidence inside to really excel. But here I was in an industry where if I'm going to survive, here's my lesson. If I'm going to survive in that industry, which was really tough, I had to learn to take care of myself emotionally. And what does that mean? It means that I had to learn to accept myself in new ways. If no one was going to be kind to me on the outside, I had to learn to be kind to me and learn to respect myself and start to love myself in new ways. So now, fast forward to where I became a seasoned actress, had my own coaching studio, and I'm starting to teach others to survive in that world. So what did I do? I taught that self-acceptance was key to getting what you want out of life, because when you start thinking, okay, positive thinking, I'm not good enough to do it. Okay, stop right there. Stop right there. Stop and say, you know what? I do accept, I am learning ways despite trying to stay positive or negative. If negative stuff comes up, fine. I love myself regardless. And if positive stuff comes up, fine. I love myself regardless. And so that's where I started helping my clients feel good about themselves and feel that self-acceptance and feel strong about who they were and what they had to offer. And the funny thing about that, Bernard, was it wasn't about just training them for modeling or acting. What happened was they started getting better grades. They started becoming better presenters and speakers and overall just better in life. And so that, of course, segued me to becoming a hypnotherapist. But what I learned, and this was my best gift, and this is what I'd like to share with your audience, is your best gifts are learning how to get through those challenges, whether you're thinking positive, you're thinking negative, getting through it and saying, you know what, for me personally, I learned that change is possible and that you can move past the self-doubts once you find that self-acceptance and you start allowing that to blossom.
And that opens a whole can of worms, doesn't it?
Yes.
That whole idea of acceptance, it seems to me, and I say this very often, that in the day-to-day life that many of us are living, we're constantly trying to control the outcome. And I always like to try to suggest letting go of the outcome, enjoying the journey. But in that self-acceptance aspect, we're constantly judging ourselves with that chatter in our brain, which leads us right into overcoming negative thinking.
That's right. Well, what do you do? How do you do? Are you asking about starting to get greater self-acceptance? Am I hearing that from you, Bernard?
Well, I'm hearing it from many, not only myself, but I mean everyone that I speak to seems to have this idea that they can be better. Just like you said, we're always constantly trying to listen to everyone else's advice, so to speak.
That's right.
We're shooting ourselves to death, literally.
Yes, we are. So what you want to do, if I may offer some suggestions here, what you want to do, your first step in achieving greater self-acceptance is to actually embrace your self-talk. You know, what you say to yourself on a consistent basis. Embrace it and learn from it. Oh, but you're saying, wait, Suzanne, it's nothing but negative. Good. Oh, but Suzanne, it's nothing but positive. Are you sure it's really positive?
Very true.
Very true. So you're kind of in this place of, I don't really want to go inside because I really don't know what's there and it's really scary. And I don't have the confidence because I don't really know what to do with it when I get there. Am I hitting a nail on the head here, Bernard?
Well, I would say so. I think many people are very concerned of getting what they wish for. I think that's one of the greatest obstacles in allowing positive, whether it be a positive manifestation that we've been putting out there. A great example is for people that wish to win the lottery. Okay, this is a silly example, but one that everyone kind of has in the background. I wish I could win the lottery. What happens when you do win the lottery? Are people going to start suing you? Are you afraid of people, asking you for money? Are you afraid of the taxes? So there's always something negative attached to something positive that we are wishing for.
Well, and actually, Bernard, what you've done is taken it ahead of the game here of what I was going to talk about, but I'm going to address that right now, which is fine. Once you start learning to embrace your self-talk and you start learning from it, what happens is there's a process that starts happening. And you really, if you do it the correct way, if you get a little help and you use the right tools, you can get down to your base core problem. I'm going to give you an example. Her name was Mary. Mary was a shopaholic. I mean, to tell you, shopping, buying. All she did was spend. Spend. Her problem, now you'd think her problem on the surface, was she was a shopaholic and she couldn't stop shopping and spending money and putting herself into financial straits. But when you start getting down into it, what was her real problem? What Mary did was, I have a program called the Effective Positive Thinking Program. And what she learned from that was how to get down to the root of what was happening. And what was happening for Mary, what she learned through the program, through the process of embracing her self-talk and learning from it, was she learned that, wow, as a child, her comfort zone was chaos. And because her life was, she was comfortable in a life of chaos, what she created in her life was financial chaos through shopping, buying. That kept her in her comfort zone of chaos.
Right.
And yeah, so when you're saying somebody wants to make change, they want to win the lottery. Oh, but there's a holdback there. There's two things that happen. Do they really want to win the lottery, or what's below that? Do they really want financial security? Do they really want freedom from that boss? What do they really want? So we really want to go through that process of getting down to what you want, but then also learning that what's going to be the barriers. So what if I win the lottery? Am I going to lose all my friends? Am I not going to be loved? All these blocks come up. And so you want to address these things rather than ignore them.
That's a great point, because I think that a lot of people think that, well, yes, I'll use the word think that they want something, but it's not necessarily what they want. It's something that perhaps they feel, like we said, winning the lottery would just really, cure all the evils of their life or whatnot. And I believe that, like you said, looking at exactly what you want, freedom from a boss, the freedom to have your own business, et cetera, is exactly the work that needs to be done that's not being done at that point.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I'd like to give you an example of Sally. She was a person that she basically did what she was told, and she wanted a different life, and she didn't really know. So she kind of knew that she needed to do what we're talking about. She needed to kind of get there, but she didn't know how to do it. She was thinking, I really want to change my life, but how do I do it? So what her first step is, like I said, embracing her self-talk and learning from it. But her problem was she was actually ignoring her self-talk, which is her own inner wisdom. You have inner wisdom inside of you that when you go through a certain process, which I have, it's part of the Effective Positive Thinking program.
Right.
When you go through this process, you start getting down to, this is the core of what I want. This is the core of what's holding me back. And that's what she did. She learned how to change that self-talk to not only embrace it and learn from it, but then change it to making custom affirmations and starting to say to herself, okay, this is what I really am afraid of. Let's face it in the face and do something about it.
Right. And, and speaking of self-talk, we do have a question already from one of our listeners. Ali is asking, what are some things that could be suggested for a male who is in a negative place and thinks of nothing but kickboxing and revenge?
Okay, Ali is the name. Ali?
Yes.
Ali, great name. Okay, so what you want to do is we want to first break the pattern. Now, how do you do that? What happens? Let me preempt that or start that out with a simple something to remember. When you are thinking a certain thought, what happens is a chemical comes out of your brain and it goes into your body. So if you're thinking about revenge, let's just use revenge, and the adrenaline that's probably coming from the kickboxing, you are constantly putting that through your body. Now, take the kickboxing away from it, and you're just thinking revenge, you're thinking anger, and that, just like insecurity or happiness, it has a particular chemical signature that is coming out of your brain. What happens then is it comes down into your bloodstream, and it puts itself into the cells of your body. The very, very tiniest part of your body is, well, one of the various tiniest parts is called a cell, and it has receptors. What happens is this, Ali. So you are basically addicted to that thought, just like tobacco, just like coffee, just like heroin. Your body says, hey, we are not getting our... So what happens when you start fighting it? Your body says, hey, we're not getting our fix today. We want to feel that chemical of revenge coming down that bloodstream now. So they make you think of thoughts to be revengeful or vengeful. They make you think of thoughts. It tells you to do this. Your body does. So what you want to do is you want to acknowledge, just right now, acknowledge that you're brain is putting out this chemical that you are addicted to it, just like heroin, just like coffee, just like tobacco. You have to break the cycle. How do you do that? One way is to say stop in your tracks and divert yourself. Go for a walk. Do anything. I personally like brainwave meditations, which we can talk about later, but I use my brainwave meditations because what they do is they immediately break the pattern. For me personally, one time I was crying 45 minutes. I could not stop crying. I was losing somebody in a death process. And, you just get into that place where you're addicted, you can't stop. And so I put my brainwave meditation in, and within about 30 seconds, I started calming down. In about 2 minutes, I was breathing normal. It was about a minute, I was breathing normal. And what that brainwave meditation did was it took my brain going from 80 miles an hour and shifted it like a transmission down into 20 miles an hour and calmed me down. It was like it grabbed me by the throat and said, hey, stop. So if you don't have the strength yourself, find some outside way to do that, such as a brainwave meditation, taking a hot bath, going for a walk, starting to be grateful for something and create a new chemical coming out, because then you will start getting addicted to that new chemical, right, whatever that new chemical is.
Suzanne, it sounds like you're making, for me, you're making quite a bit of reference to something that I know of as neuroplasticity. Is that something that you're familiar with?
Excellent, absolutely.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about it for those of us that aren't aware of it?
Okay, that's a great subject. What happens in the field of positive psychology or happiness psychology is that what they're finding is, I think a lot of people know this, but what they're finding is that our brains are basically very changeable, very adaptable. Adaptable, that's the word. So what happens is when you are thinking positive and you are on a positive thought wavelength for the bulk of the time and your mind is in a positive place, your mind is actually creating more neural networks faster. It's building more highways in your head. So what does that mean when you're talking plasticity? It means that your brain is adapting to external circumstances. And I know that might sound way too technical. Sorry. What it is it's responding to the outside, what's happening. So for example, learning curve. You don't know how to walk or you don't know how to spell something. So your brain is learning how to do that, and it's adapting. And in order to do that learning curve, what it's doing is it's building a freeway in your head so that it has the road that it can send the data down so that you know how to connect A, B, and B. And what that means is the more you're positive and you're thinking positive thoughts, it's been proven that your brain is creating neural networks faster and stronger. So you really want to stay positive. What happens when you're thinking negative? You're probably thinking, well, wow, I must be really dumb if I'm thinking negative. You're building neural networks being negative because every thought and everything you're thinking, your brain is responding to. So if you're thinking a thought of revenge, we'll take Ali's example, you have a network in your head that is supporting that thought. And the more you think it, the stronger that network gets. Now you stop that network, you stop that thought, and you create a thought of gratitude, or you start using something else to replace that, and that network actually starts dying. And you start building a network based on the new positive thought. That makes sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, and it's something that, I feel that many of us do. We don't even realize that we create a habit of the way that we think, and yes, I call it. When we get into that rut of, let's say, for example, the revenge aspect of it. To me, that becomes a broken record. It's just something that's constantly. We've kind of like what they call the beaten path. We've beaten a path in our brain for that to constantly reoccur, expecting the same, the same outcome and the same rush as you had said earlier.
Well, think about this, Bert. Sorry to interrupt, but think about this. When you're on autopilot and you're driving to work and you're zoning out, your car and your mind, and you could just go on autopilot and you know the route to work. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
Your brain does the same thing.
There is something to be said about that whole autopilot thing, I will say. And, I was wondering, one of the things that I like to share with people, especially when it comes to developing an awareness to this neural pathway or this neuroplasticity that we talk about, is to do, let's say, even our daily habits of putting on our shoes. Instead of putting your right shoe on first, put on your left shoe. That way you're conscious and aware of it. And I feel that perhaps that gives us a greater courage to do other changes in our life. Is there anything you could say as far as developing a new neural pathway?
Yes, I can. Brush your teeth. Everybody knows this, but I mean, most people know this. Brush your teeth with a non-dominant hand, write with a non-dominant hand. What you're trying to do is get that other side of your brain working so that it's more whole brain functioning. And that's a very important thing for us to remember when we are balanced people. Our brains are left side, right side, they're working together. And this actually is the more you do emotional intelligence, if you're familiar with emotional intelligence,
Right.
which is where you actually stop yourself from feeling the emotional part and you sort of analyze it. What you're doing is you're blocking one part of your brain from taking over and being emotional, and you're building a highway between the two brains. But also the brainwave meditations really, really strongly do that. You want to know why?
What's that?
What they do is they synchronize both sides of your brain. And it builds highways. So have you heard the example of a violin being in a room and it's someone plucks one string on one violin and the rest of the violins start resonating to that particular note? Have you heard that?
Yes, I have. And I need to interrupt you because we're going to be coming up on a break in just a few seconds. Let's pick up where we left off on the violins. We also have a question from a listener. If you are interested in hearing more about Suzanne Glover, please go to effective-positive-thinking.com. We'll be right back.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are having a really empowering conversation today with Suzanne Glover. And before the break, we were talking about neuroplasticity, and Suzanne was sharing with us, I guess, a very great analogy of it pertaining to the violin. Suzanne, can we pick up where we left off?
Yes, great. When we're talking about whole brain functioning, what I was talking about was integrating your left side and your right side, because what happens when you do that, when you're able to connect those halves of your brain and work both on an emotional and intellectual level, you start building those highways, the freeways back and forth, the neural networks, and they start to get to know each other. They're sort of in the same neighborhood there.
Yeah.
And what happens is, what I started to use as a example was a violin. Now, one way I suggest that you accomplish this is through a brainwave meditation. And what that does is this. Violin in the room, you pluck one chord on one violin, say it's a C, and all the other violins all by themselves will start resonating to that C note or whatever note you played on the first violin. Now, why that happens is because it's called the law of resonance. And it's just one of those laws out there, law of gravity, law of attraction. Law of resonance means that when there's a vibration going through a room or around you, things are going to synchronize with that. So what you're doing when you're doing a brainwave meditation, what you're doing is you're creating your whole brain starts to synchronize to one frequency, and that makes the whole brain work together, and that starts creating those highways for you.
Right. And that's a great, a great reminder for those of us that have been involved in this, the law of resonance, to remember that, for me, it kind of, it's like attracts like. Once we begin resonating a particular vibration, everything else around us, or law of synchronization. Geez, they're all the same, aren't they? In one way or another. In one way or another.
They do seem to be, don't they?
In one way or another. We do have a question that I wanted to get to, if that's okay, Suzanne.
Yes, of course, yes.
There was a gentleman, or I don't know if it's a gentleman or a lady, Art Underground, here in the chat room, is asking about our talk earlier about the shopaholic, and asks, I always thought shopaholics were that way because of some sense of insecurity. So are they always shopping for more stuff because it's one form of gratification they can find to feel better about themselves, thinking the more stuff they have, the happier they are? Or am I wrong, they're asking?
And there's no name to this person?
Art Underground. Art is the handle we're using here on the chat room.
Hello, Art Underground. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, Art Underground. That's a good question. What happens in the shopaholism is it can be triggered by a number of things. In Mary's case, it was that she wanted chaos. In someone else's case, such as Bob's case, he was feeling inadequate in his life, so he was filling his void with things around him, hoping that he would be happy. But then you take Tom, and he shopped because it was more of I have money and I need to show that I have money. And again, of course, it's insecurity. Yeah. But, and you're saying probably that's fueling everybody out there. But Tom's problem was, I'm insecure because I need to show people I have money, but I also have that egotism where I have to provide for my family. I'm not sure if that's egotism, but ego, whatever. He also wanted to provide for his family. So for him, Tom, he was shopping a lot, but what his family, and providing a lot for his family, but what his family really wanted was more of Tom. But he was trying to replace it with shopping because he didn't feel adequate. So yes, there are a ton of reasons for shopaholic people.
Yeah, and like with anything, it's very individual, and what is the motivation behind it? Or it's really hard to lump everybody into one, one label, so to speak.
That's right. But the bottom is below that is there's a reason that he, she, or whatever is doing that.
Right. Now, Suzanne, there's a common characteristic in many people, especially in the whether it be in the metaphysical or the self-empowerment or consciousness or activism movements, that and this goes not only from an individual but into a societal behavior of repeating the same thing over and over again. What is it that we're missing, either on an individual or societal level, that causes us to keep re-experiencing these unfulfilling past behaviors?
That is really a great, great, great question. And what you want to do is recognize that you can change a thought. You don't have to absorb it from the ethers, which they really are out there trying to get you. And this sounds like I'm plotting, like the world's plotting against me. But it is true that there is a consciousness of what we pretty much absorb these days. And one of the things that we absorb is a very, very bad money mentality. There's a lot of poverty mentality out there. And if you start listening to people joke about money, not having money. People joke about winning the lottery. People joke about a lot of things. People will say things like, oh, the rich people are, well, okay, if you're talking about the rich people are, what are you if you're not one of them? So there are a lot of things out there, and what you want to do is recognize that you can make a change. Give yourself permission to do that. That's the first thing. Recognize that you can make the change. And, instead of going, I'm so frustrated, I'm so overwhelmed, and I'm going down the same path, instead of saying that all the time, if you just start recognizing that you have been accidentally programmed by these ethers, all these thoughts that have gone around in the world, once you start recognizing that you've been accidentally programmed, then you have a power to start moving ahead in your life. Let's take Bev. She learned the difference between accidental programming and intentionally programming yourself for what she wanted. So once she understood that her past, once she started letting go of it, that it really wasn't going to affect her future and that she had been accidentally programmed with all these beliefs that are floating around out there. Oh, Bev, shame on you, you're a bad little girl. Oh, Bob, shame on you, you're a bad little boy. What do we hear all the time as kids? No, 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 no. You can't do that. We can't afford that. Blah, 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 blah. So once Bev learned that she could do this, she started releasing the beliefs from her past that were playing havoc in her present. And that's what she did was she used the effective positive thinking program to do that. But what the key here is that she basically gave herself permission to look inside, embrace her self-talk, find out that she'd been accidentally programmed, and start learning ways and using tools to release it. That's the important thing to do there.
So, and I agree with you 100%. Just to reiterate what you're saying is the first step is really giving ourselves permission to heal, giving ourselves permission to move beyond the unfulfilling past behaviors. In other words, that it's okay that we did what we did, that it's okay that we thought we had to do this over and over again until we learned, until we got, burnt or whatnot. But again, I think I really like that because one of the weekly groups that I teach here locally, I say the same thing. We have to start off by giving permission to ourselves.
Right, but that can be scary. I'm just going to give you a
yeah.
Why is that scary, Bernard? I'm just going to act as the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Why is that scary?
Well, the reality of it is that we're very comfortable in our misery sometimes. We're very comfortable and we just feel and we're addicted. Exactly. We're addicted to that negative thinking. We're addicted to feeling miserable. And so to feel something differently or to think something differently, or even what I see as being the catalyst of creating change can be very scary.
Right. But the good part about this is recognizing if you really are unhappy and you get to a point that you say, you know what, this is not working for me. So you go down the road until you really say, I cannot do this anymore. And everyone has their own breaking point. If you stay on that road that you're going on, you're going to get to that breaking point. No matter if it's today, tomorrow, or next month, or 10 years from now, you're going to get to that breaking point. You're going to say you're either going to go back to drinking, back to drugs. If you never did that, maybe you're going to start doing it. Maybe you're going to think about suicide. All these things that as you go down this road farther and farther, you're going to create a physiology, chemistry and a physiology that are going to get more and more addicted to it. So you really want to say, you know what? This is a road down the wrong path, and say, I'm going to stop now. It may be a little scary, but I'm going to give myself permission. And I'm going to learn to, as part of this, I'm going to learn how to accept myself during this process so that it's okay that I make a mistake. And that's the best thing we can do for ourselves, Bernard.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with you, Suzanne. I feel that one of the greatest challenges that people have when they're giving themselves permission to start a new way of thinking or a new way of living is that permission to make a mistake. Because we become very, very self-judgmental of our actions. And if we don't live up to perhaps the ideal of where we're headed, we start thinking, well, I'm not making it because I failed. But it's not about failure. It's about the process and allowing that process to come through and find its way to your empowerment.
That's right. And if you keep it, of course, my theme here is if you keep it in mind that you're working on a biological level, physiology, you're working with your own chemistry, you're working with your neural networks. And if you are supported during your change and helped, with guidance and tools and all these things, that you can start breaking that addiction, breaking that psychology, physiology, biology, and start building the new infrastructure of you inside. And that's the thing to keep your eye on the prize here, is that you are building a new you. And there is hope for that because your brain and your body is totally adaptable. Like we talked about earlier, the plasticity of your brain.
Absolutely.
So it's totally possible.
I just want to bring into the conversation as well, because many of our listeners, especially on this radio station and fans of the Global Illumination Council, are very much spiritual activists. And we're all trying to create a better world. Many of us are eco activists. Many of us are human rights activists. And the same thing applies in that path, that we're trying to create a new paradigm, and it's not going to happen overnight. Yes, we will have failures. Yes, we're going to see setbacks in human rights. Yes, we'll see setbacks in the economy. Yes, we'll see setbacks in the maintenance of the ecology of the planet. But it doesn't mean that we've failed. It's no reason to give up.
You want a good reason? I'm going to give you a good reason to keep going.
Yes.
It's been shown with research that when you have gratitude in your heart, that you emanate a certain vibration. I think it's about 18 feet around you.
Yeah.
It could be 14, might be 18. I think it's 18. So you have a certain diameter around you that you are emanating this vibration. And the interesting thing about this, Bernard, is when you are feeling that sense of gratitude in your heart, and you have somebody within that diameter around you, you're actually changing the coherence of their heart, their heartbeat. You're actually having a physical shift in their body. So if you want to be a change agent, there you go. It starts with, I know everybody says it starts with me, it starts with you. Yes, but if you look at it on that type of level and say, well, it really is doing something and it can be tested, then that makes me personally more motivated to stay going and doing that. Yeah,
Absolutely. And it's funny because I get so much resistance. And maybe you could speak about this, because maybe this has to do with the fear of failure. That I get a lot of resistance in the work that I do as a spiritual activist, as a radio host, as the empowerment director of the GIC and whatnot, in terms of exactly what you're talking about, that in order to create change on the outside, we must create change on the inside, and not only be the example, but vibrate at that level. So just like you said, is that a fear of failure? Is that what you're talking about when you talk about fear of failure?
No, I think it's what you're focused on, actually. You're actually focused on, and this is what a lot of people don't, and I don't mean to offend anyone, a lot of people don't understand that when they're fighting a cause, they're actually adding more energy to it.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Yes, because you're fighting it. So give me an example of what you would get. Just give me an example of something you would say to somebody or that would get resistance.
Well, for me as an activist, I would say that, a great example, just what you said, that we must stop yelling and screaming at the powers that be and really create a solution. And the resistance I get is, well, if you don't say anything, nothing's going to change.
But now, all I heard from that sentence that you said was yelling and screaming at someplace. All I heard were the action words of yelling and screaming.
Right.
So when you want to make change, Bernard, what you want to do is learn how to actually point your energy in the direction that you want. And so what I would say is, instead of yelling and screaming, what's the absolute opposite? What is the goal of what you're trying to get right there? What is your goal don't use yelling and screaming. What's your goal in a positive sense?
For me personally, I would say that my goal is to empower people with the knowledge of that there is something better. That there is a better option. A good example. Right now, we're coming up on the March Against Monsanto. Of course, Monsanto is this, global. They try to own all the seeds, and they're trying to control food, or they are controlling food. My option would be of having a free flow of seed exchange, a free flow of non-patented seeds that are not owned by mega corporations, that anyone would have the right to plant any seed they wish without fear of being sued or being raided by the FDA.
Is there a way that you can actually physically do that? I mean, on a small level?
On a small level, there is something called seed exchanges amongst farmers, and it's a big deal for me because I live here in Virginia now. Coming from Miami, we didn't have farms, but now that I'm here, I love this idea of organic farming and whatnot. So yes, there is something called seed exchanges, But there is resistance by the government to it because they can't patent or own the seed or make a profit off of it.
Yes. So what time of the March is this? Is it in March or is it a March in February?
No, it's a March and May, actually.
Okay, all right. So at the time, this is my opinion, based on what I know about energy and attracting and repelling. I would suggest, Bernard, that at the exact same time that that's happening, that you have some sort of marathon of your own where people are actually going out physically giving seeds out to counteract, and not to say this is counteracting Monsanto. I would not do that. I would say I would promote my own whatever I'm doing, because what happens on an energetic level is you're spreading the energy of what you want. When you're fighting Monsanto, you're adding energy to what you don't want. So what you want to do is start creating affirmations around and speaking to people around what you want. Now, how do you find out what you want? You start figuring it out by getting down to your negative self-talk, because you may think you want something, just like Mary in the Shopaholic thought she wanted something, but she was really driven by something else. She was really driven by a need inside. If you can find the need inside yourself to do this, then you've got more power to get out there, and you know exactly why you're doing this. And by the way, this process, I'm not expecting in an hour show or 2 hour show for you to understand this and do this, and I'm not being condescending or anything. I'm saying this is a necessity. It's necessary for you to learn to do this, and there's a process of going down and finding your negative self-talk and finding out what you want and finding out what's really motivating you to make that change, because when you get to the motivation of making that change, then you've got more power to make the change, because you're really coming from an authentic core self. And that's why the whole level 1 of the Effective Positive Thinking program covers this, because this is very important, Bernard, to get down to the root of what you are trying to do.
And I think I just had a little epiphany here as I'm listening to you, especially with dealing with the particular March Against Monsanto. The goal actually of the it's actually a global protest, and it's happening in about 200 cities around the world. But the goal is to make it a standard for labeling, to label all products that have been genetically modified. And while you were talking, I had to ask myself, and I said, well, why do I want to have the food that I'm eating labeled that it's genetically modified? And for me, it really is just the freedom to have the choice, my choice to eat it or not eat it.
There you have.
There you go. The freedom to choose.
So now you have power to find something else in your life that gives you choice around what you eat.
Yes, exactly.
Now you're talking a protest. You're protesting Monsanto. So you think that, well, if I'm giving out seeds, I'm not really adding to their protest, but it's a different energy thing.
Yeah.
You're really don't want to add to their energy because they're fight. I'll tell you, I'll give you an example. I never noticed a place down the road from me that was a meat house, a union. It was a union, like a meat house, right?
Right.
Butcher shop.
Right.
I never noticed them until they had workers out there on strike. Never saw them at all and so it was free advertising for that butcher shop because they were out there protesting.
Yeah, exactly. You're drawing attention to something. I exactly know what you mean by that. We're going to be coming up on break in about 30 seconds, so I didn't want to go too deep into a topic right now. But before we go on the break, Suzanne, can you tell us a little bit about your Effective Positive Thinking program?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you. It's a very comprehensive program that helps you get to the root of your problems like we've been talking about, but it also gives you the tools, subliminal tools, to overcome negative money beliefs and become a money magnet. So it's a very comprehensive, very effective program, and it's available at effectivepositivethinking.com.
That's wonderful. Gosh, I'm gonna have to go look at that now.
Thank you.
Anyway, we're getting ready to take a break. When we return, we're going to continue our discussion with Suzanne Glover, and we're going to cover, gosh, so many more topics. So stick around, and we'll be back after this commercial break.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are speaking with Suzanne Glover today about overcoming negative thinking. And, you know, as I was listening to the commercial that just played, a question popped into my head, Suzanne, and I'm wondering if you could help us out with this.
Sure.
I'm one of these people that I need to learn what I do not want in order to get a clearer picture of what I do want. A lot of times we hear, and again, I guess this is kind of a gray area, or maybe it's not, and you'll clarify it, but getting angry, getting outraged, how can we turn that into something positive? Can that help us teach? Can that be a teacher for us?
Yes, it can be. And I was thinking about that too during the commercial.
Great. So what are your thoughts on that as far as being motivated to create change by the things that we don't want?
Well, like I said earlier today, I used it as an example of you're going down a certain road and you've got this chemistry, biological, physiology going on in your body. So you're going to get to a point where you've just had it. And anger is not something to be afraid of. Now, you're going to say, okay, Suzanne, you are contradicting yourself. You are going to get addicted to being angry. You're already addicted to being angry. Okay?
Yeah.
So using it as a catalyst, absolutely. When it's an absolute necessity, when you really want to make change, that you get angry. Because anger is fuel. And even though you don't want to stay in that angry place because don't want that angry chemical coming out of your brain forever, it's definitely usable as fuel to fuel you to make change. I've had enough of this. I'm going to do something about it. Well, okay, do something about it. Start thinking about, well, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah. And
but don't stay in that anger place, but use it when it comes up.
Absolutely, and I think that I've spoken in the past, and I believe we've had several guests talk about this, becoming or developing a relationship with quote unquote our shadow self, and that might be that place of anger, that place of fear, that place of melancholy, and the reason why for me, and you'll explain what is right or wrong about what I'm about to share, is that when we become friends with anger, again, it becomes a tool. When we become friends with depression, it can become a tool to tell us what we don't want to live like. As well, it gives us the opportunity to not be so hard on ourselves when we get to that place. People that have fear, people that have anger, people that have depression, it's okay to be in it for a moment, like you said, let it be the catalyst, and move out of it, but not feel bad because you were there, even if it was for a couple hours.
Right. That goes back to the self-acceptance and saying, okay, I'm in this place right now. What can I do right now? Can I put in a brainwave meditation? Can I take a walk? Can I take a hike? Can I take a bath? What's going to break this pattern? Yes, I can listen to it for a period of time and use it as a catalyst, but you don't want to get stuck there.
Exactly. And speaking of fear, you talk a little bit about on your website, and I'm assuming within the program, you talk a little bit how the fear of failure can be paralyzing, and I know it is for many people. I know for myself, it has been in the past. What are some things that we can do to get out of that fear of failure now that we become aware of what we don't want? We want to create a new life. We want to create a new way of thinking. We want to create a new world, but we're still afraid. What can we do to get beyond that?
Okay, so that's a great question. The fear of failure can be paralyzing, absolutely. So how do you move beyond that? Well, first you want to just recognize the mental roadblocks that you've created, which cause you to feel out of control. You know that out of control feeling when you're really feeling fearful and you're out of control and you're disappointed in yourself, and you want to actually slow down and recognize, well, what's going on here? What's blocking me? Okay. Secondly, once you start that process of asking yourself in a certain way, all right, how do I feel about this? how am I going to get these thoughts out of me? You start to realize that stress, depression, and fear come from your habitual pattern of negative thinking. And like we talked about earlier, it becomes a physical addiction. So I'm just going to give you an example of what was Gloria. She was a high school dropout. And so what happened when she wanted to make change in her life? What happened? She had the fear of failure come up. She dropped out of high school, became a waitress on the south side of Chicago, and she wanted to go back to school and create a better life for herself. But she was addicted to being a dropout in high school. So if that fear came up, anxiety attacks, fear of failure, depression. Her problem was she feared she wouldn't measure up. And she kept asking herself that repetitive. What if I fail? What if I fail? What if I fail? What if I fail? What happened was she was talking herself into failure over and over again because she was actually absorbing what was going on around her. The self-talk was not only her talk, but it was the people around her doing that. And Bill, the mid-level manager, did the same thing. He got his patterns from people around him. And when you start actually understanding that your thoughts and your fears you're picking up from people around you, then you have the power to start breaking those. How do you learn to do that? All right, this is a complicated subject. That's why I created that whole big program to do that.
Right.
But what you really want to do, again, is start listening to yourself and asking yourself, like we did earlier when I was talking to you, and you might need a coach to do this, certainly. It's sometimes better to just talk it out like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And say, okay, so you said one thing. You want to try to be your own coach. If you need some help with that in the beginning, certainly find somebody, a friend, to talk to you, somebody who's safe, and ask them to help you see what you're not seeing about yourself. Now, they may not be able to because they're in the pond of negativity as well, all right? But when you start recognizing that your fear is actually a habit, a pattern, a vibration, of addiction, and you start recognizing that you've been accidentally programmed and that your self-talk is making you really go nowhere because you're addicted to it, you really want to start giving yourself that permission to start making the change. And the first thing you want to look at is, okay, quiet down, find a way to meditate, which I thought we were going to talk more about today.
Oh, we will. We got 45 more minutes.
Oh, okay. Because meditation really helps you shift your brain, whether you do it traditionally or through the brainwave meditation, which I believe is today's answer to traditional meditation because it drops you down instantly. But no matter how you get there, it really slows down. And fear, I'll just tell you this, fear and depression and anxiety and stress, all these related emotions are all up in a very, very fast, your brain is going at 80 miles an hour. Boom, 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 boom. The brain waves are just, if you looked at a chart, it's very jagged and very fast. So what you want to do by breaking that pattern is slowing your brainwave down. That's why I say a walk, a brainwave meditation, a hot bath, anything to break that pattern and slow it down, that will break the fear because fear is associated with that very fast brainwave. See how I'm going at this? Yeah. Everything. So people think positive thinking is all in your head. It's in your body. Yeah. Really is. And you are a petri dish. And when you start understanding your body from a petri dish viewpoint, you start having the tools to go, and the motivation, and the hope that, I can get past this. So you start thinking of ways to break that fear by slowing down your mental processes.
It's slowing down that chatter, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that, honestly, like I said, I found is breaking it on a physical level.
Absolutely. Suzanne, I have another question for you. This was sent to me via Facebook from Syria. A gentleman, Amir, wants to know, my country is in turmoil. My brother was killed in front of me. How do I stay positive?
Well, Amir, I'm so sorry. See, this is where positive thinking just does not work. You've got that in your body. How can you not remember your brother being killed in front of you? And what I've learned from post-traumatic stress syndrome is how long, well, I guess we can't ask him how long ago, but what I'll say is what I've learned about post-traumatic stress syndrome is you might be having dreams coming up about this. What typically the typical scenario that I've learned about is you have a traumatic incident and a period of time goes by. Whenever you are relaxed again, you might start dreaming about this and having nightmares about it. And that is a sign that you have the post-traumatic syndrome going on because it's starting to come out. Now, some people would say to you, oh, that's a good sign because you're releasing it.
Right.
And there could be some good to that. But on something like that, I really suggest and highly recommend seeing someone for the post-traumatic syndrome, an analysis, a psychoanalysis for that. Because no matter how positive you can be, your brother was killed in front of you. And that's a reality. And that is in you on a vibrational, totally, okay, let me explain this real quickly, Bernard.
Yeah.
When we have something called mirror neurons in our head, or in our bodies, or it's in there. So the neurons, when you actually see something happen, when you're watching television or you're listening, you see, or you're talking to someone and you're relating to what they say, you're actually experiencing it in your body and in your mind. So Amir, it was Amir, right?
Yes.
Amir, thank you. You experienced, I don't want to put this in your head, but I would suspect that you are probably going to get more bothered by this because you almost experienced your own death because you saw something and the mirror neurons in your head were saying, oh, wow, I'm experiencing that on my own level, in my own body. And I don't think that is something that's positive thinking is not going to help. Now, having said that, you want to find a way to start calming down those thoughts. And I don't mind to sound like a broken record, but I rely on my brainwave meditations to do these things because they do start helping you get past the thoughts that are happening and help your body recover. But that does not replace some sort of analysis, some sort of therapy for this. And I don't know if that's available in your country. I'm sure it's probably not on a regular basis. But what you can do is try to find ways to really meditate and release that from your body on a physical realm some way, somehow, so that it gets out of your body, so it gets out of your mind. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, it does for me. Absolutely. And you know what? That'll bring me to my next question. And this, I guess, would be more for the general public. You know, when someone does die, especially if they die in front of us, we are left with a void. What can we do to move through that to feel whole again?
Well, there's no doubt that there is absolutely a huge void when someone dies, whether you see them die in a negative fashion where they're killed or they suddenly die or it's an expected death. Death is an unknown to us who are living, to we who are living. But that is the time, honestly, the time that you are able to catapult yourself into a new realm and you start finding some tools and techniques that will bring you the will or the desire to be alive and to be free from the frustration and the strength to help you move through the challenges. And this is obviously one of the biggest challenges, but I'll tell you, Stan and Norma were married, I mean, to tell you, 60 years, 70 years, 60 years.
Wow.
And, of course, Norma died. Right. And it was unexpected, absolutely fast. And what was Stan left with was abandonment, shock, loss. He really, as a man, he was afraid to cry. And this is hard for a man, obviously. We're taught as a society that men don't cry. So it was even harder for him to allow himself to cry but he wasn't wanting to live.
Right.
So what happened for him was he broke that pattern. He used one of my brainwave meditations and he started feeling better. And what happened was because his brain started working as a whole when you use these things, he started finding answers. And what happened was Norma actually wrote him a lot of love letters at one time, and he published them in a book. And it was the coolest thing because because now Norma's love was tangible and he was sharing it with others, he found a way to change how he thought about the loss. So that's where positive thinking can come in when you're changing your paradigm about what's going on. Well, okay, Norma's gone. You can focus on that. Or, well, Norma's gone and I thought her love died with her for me, but no, her love was kept alive by the letters that she sent me. So now I still have her love for me with me. Doesn't replace Norma, but it did help him change his thinking about it. And he still had Norma there in a way, and it helped him relieve that loss a little bit. But he needed to break the pattern of crying and being sucked into that depressed state. And for him to use their brainwave meditations to do that.
That's beautiful, actually. I love that idea, and I use it myself. You know, if I lose a family member or a friend or something like that, that they're never gone. There's no reason not to still maintain a relationship with them. You know, I speak to my mom all the time. She's been gone 15 years now. I speak to my friend who's been gone for 5 years. And we still have, you know, conversations in my head, but there's no reason not to feel that connection is what I'm trying to say. And it doesn't make me sad. You know, it doesn't make me say, yeah, of course, for the first couple of weeks or months, you know, that's a part of the grieving process. But like you suggested, to be positive and moving that feeling and connection into a positive place is the way to go.
That's right. And giving yourself ways to support yourself during that moment.
Absolutely. I really want to get into an in-depth discussion about using meditation for positive thinking. But prior to that, we do have one question I just want to put in here. Franklin is asking, have you ever used Psych K technique? I personally haven't heard of that.
No, I haven't either. I'm sorry. I'd like to look into that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of it. Is. Okay, hey Franklin, if you're still listening, why don't you post a link to some info on that? And we'll take a look at that. Thank you for your question. I think Triva is sending us a little message here. Is that from Franklin?
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, in the meantime, let's go ahead and I want to take this question because it does have to do with meditation, and we can go a little bit deeper into the meditation work that we can use. The question is from Power Goddess. Great name. Thank you, Power Goddess.
That's a great name.
And she's asking if you suggest meditation to overcome our programming.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great.
Shall I say that again?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't want to sound like a commercial, Bernard, but I do want to mention something because this is a perfect question that I have a very strong belief that you need to include meditation with hypnosis, with all these things. It's a very important thing. When I put my program together, I found that a personal development junkie will use a lot of different things
right,
without a plan. But when you can start combining things like meditation and hypnosis and learning to do affirmations, I feel like meditation is absolutely key to getting over it. And it's because it slows down your brain into a more receptive state. You're more able to receive the hypnosis. You're more able to have more creativity for affirmations. It's like the basis of all of it. And that's what I really have focused on when I put my program together was I see that a lot of people say, well, is it this? Should I do meditation? Should I do hypnosis? Should I do affirmations? Should I do subliminals? Should I do it all? You should do it all, but not really. You should really do it together in a focused, planned way. So meditate, but I think meditation is totally key to that.
You know, I couldn't agree more. For me, I feel that, again, meditation takes us away out of what they call the monkey mind, the going from thought to thought to thought. I find that most people, whether it be behavioral imbalances or psychological imbalances, or even just a bad attitude, comes from the inability to quiet down the mind, stop the chatter, and listening to who we truly are. I'm very metaphysical. I'm very spiritual. I'm a certified Reiki master, and I'm an ordained minister. I've been an inspirational speaker for years. And again, I have to agree with you that it is all about the meditation, because without the ability to, even just to relax, I mean, how many people out there don't know how to relax?
And that is what I was just, you were reading my mind. Because I'm sure everyone's out there thinking, okay, Bernard and Suzanne, you're talking on the radio about all these things that are not going to help us because we can't sit down for 5 minutes and slow our brains down enough to start learning how to do this. Are you right? Are we right here?
Yep.
So how do you, I mean, we really want to start meditating like a monk, but we, as a society, of course, we want to get there fast. And you can really be distracted. You sit down, you start thinking about meditating, and all of a sudden, all this laundry list stuff comes up that you think, okay, so what do? Some people will say, well, I keep a piece of paper and a pencil by my thing, and I jot it down. You've heard that probably, right?
Yeah, of course. Log
it.
Journal it.
Journal it. And I'm a big proponent of journaling.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I'll tell you, you can journal. I've journaled 20 pages and I haven't gotten into meditation. Okay. And I sat down. I am a meditation person that has been able to do it on my own, but it's not something that I really look forward to doing. There's not any real way that I can determine which level of meditation that I'm in, because there are different stages of meditation. And if you look on the internet, Bernard, and you Google stages of meditation, there are going to be anywhere from 3 to 5 to 22 or 21 stages. Everyone has an opinion about this.
Yeah.
Right. But in my mind, the stages of meditation, I correlate them with our brainwave frequencies. And so you've got a very fast brainwave going on, which is the beta state, which is not meditation. But as soon as you start dropping down and slowing it down, you're going from 80 miles an hour down to 60 miles an hour, down to 40 miles an hour, down to 20 miles an hour. I look at it as there's about 3 stages of meditation where you've got the, 80, 60, you've got the alpha stage where you're just lightly relaxed. And then you've got the theta stage below that. And then you've got the delta stage below that, which is sleeping.
Right.
And all of these different meditation states give you different particular benefits. And so I think meditation is key to something that we should be doing as a society, but as a society, we're all too busy to do it.
And that seems to be the case. It's the journal on the wheel type mentality. We're constantly moving, doing, and I feel that unfortunately that is fortunately or unfortunately, we can learn from what we don't want, as I always say. But the idea that we deserve to relax mentally is something that we need to start focusing on as a culture as well. It's funny. We talked about outside programming and whatnot, but and I'll bring this up just briefly, how it's become popular to be busy. Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm just so busy. And it's almost as it has become a status because you're so busy, you're an important person.
Yep.
And I feel within me that that's one of the reasons why meditation is not utilized as often as it could be.
But even if you want to stay busy, let's just play devil's advocate here. Even if you want to stay busy and you need that for whatever reason you haven't discovered yet, but if you start asking yourself, why do I need to stay busy? And you start getting down to that process of what's at the base of that. Well, it doesn't matter. You can use meditation at a different part of your life to help you stay busy and have the energy to be busy. Okay?
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
I mean, it's not like you need to slow. But there is something that happens, Bernard, and that is that when you're in that fast brainwave state and you're going 80 miles an hour, boom, 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 it's called beta. And you can actually, and the next one down is called alpha. So the slower one is alpha. You can actually get something called alpha block. You cannot enter into a relaxed state because your mind is not allowing you to get there. And so if you spend a lot of time in beta, you're busy all the time, you're depressed, you're stressed, you have a lot of fear, you have a lot of anxiety, you get not only addicted to it, but your body blocks you out from relaxing enough to get down into the more relaxed states of mind. And that's why when I'm talking about these brainwave meditations, I advocate them across the board, because every brainwave meditation, not only does it slow you down, it takes your mind by the throat and says, hey, stop, because it's using it by electricity. It puts your brain into a slower state, boof. But it also gives you different benefits. So I used to do traditional meditation, but then I didn't know exactly what kind of benefits am I going to get. Am I going to get the immune function and the reduced levels of cortisol? Am I going to get down to that level to eliminate the anxiety and the depression and be able to sleep better and have better well-being and inner peace and so forth? So what I started doing was using the meditations. And for example, the alpha meditation, one of their particular benefits of the alpha state is that you can learn more. So if you're a student in high school or college, or you're cramming for the bar exam or some sort of test, listening to a alpha meditation, a brainwave meditation, actually can help you comprehend more. Now, if you sit down and do your tranquility, I'm really busy, but I'm going to sit here for 5 minutes and calm my mind down, sure, you've gotten yourself down there. But if you start using a brainwave meditation, you get yourself into the alpha state because you're picking the alpha flavor. You listen to it for 20 minutes, and you know that your brain is at the alpha state, and you are in that particular benefit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a matter of, I guess familiarizing yourself or making a habit out of it.
And you're actually training your brain. So if you are in alpha block, you're actually training your brain to get down into alpha by using an outside. Remember how we talked about the plasticity?
Yeah.
How your brain reacts to outside stimuli? That is what we're talking about here. The brainwave meditation is something that you listen to with headphones. You turn it on, and you basically let it do the work of putting you down into meditation. And you can choose alpha, theta, or delta. And you can, in alpha, do those. In theta, you have more creativity come out. And in delta, you start getting those physical, really rejuvenated hormones, right. Rejuvenated. So when you're talking about meditation, like
Suzanne, I need to interrupt you. I'm sorry. We're getting ready to come up on a break, but I want to continue this, and I want to go deeper into the different types of meditations that you offer.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We're having a wonderful discussion today with Suzanne Glover on overcoming negative thinking, and now we're going to move the conversation into how we can use meditation to overcome that negative thinking. Welcome back, Suzanne.
Thank you, Bernard. I'm sorry. I love talking about the meditation. I got a little carried away.
I love it. I'm so glad you're impassioned on this particular work, and it's a great topic. It's a great topic. Now, let me ask you, Suzanne, tell us a little bit about the program itself. You offer several types of different meditations.
Well, thank you all. Thank you, Bernard. I actually have... In my work, I have found that a lot of people, like I mentioned before, will do a lot of different things in a haphazard manner. So what I've done with the Effective Positive Thinking program is I combined hypnosis and how to do affirmations, customized affirmations, brainwave meditations, subliminal audios, which I'd love to tell you about. Yeah. One of them. Not just a story about how they work. And what that does is it's a program that helps you basically overcome negative thinking and become a money magnet by overcoming negative money beliefs. But I have found that hypnosis is more effective when you use the brainwave meditations with it. And so I've combined a lot of effective tools together with guidance on how to do it. But I also sell the brainwave meditations separately in a set.
Oh, blank. Okay, great.
Yeah, so They're all at effectivepositivethinking.com on the homepage. Oh, and you know what? I forgot to tell you, there's a free Overcome Negative Thinking quiz. If you are wondering if you're thinking negative, take the quiz at effectivepositive.thinking.
Well, that's a great place to start.
It is. It's a video thing I did. It's kind of fun.
That's great. Now, let me ask you, I'm very interested in the brainwave meditations. Is there, oh geez, what's that called? Binaural beats or anything like that in the background? Or how did you put it together? Oh, there is. Wonderful. I love those. They really
so you understand those. Tell me what you know about that so I can.
Okay, well, my understanding of it, and I hopefully this will help some of our listeners, is my understanding is that there are different megahertz frequencies that affect different parts of our brain and or our brain wave function. And in the binaural beats, what they do is there is one particular frequency coming in one ear and another frequency in the other ear, which creates a third frequency within the brain.
Yep, that's right. And again, your brain is the violin.
Oh, there you go.
So for the listeners who have just joined us, a violin in a room that you pull, plug, pling, and it plays a C or something, all the other violins will start resonating to it all by themselves. That's exactly what you're doing with a meditation. A brainwave meditation does do one frequency in one ear, another frequency in the other ear, and that's why you need stereo headphones for it.
Yeah.
And then your brain will come up with the third frequency. And the frequencies, for example, alpha is usually about 7 to 13 megahertz. Theta is about 4 to 7, and then the delta is from, I can't believe 0, but it's down there, 0 to 4.
Right.
But the theta, I like my favorite. I use all of them, but my favorite is the theta because it also can allow you to, It replaces 2 to 3 hours of sleep by listening.
I want one of those.
Yeah. I've listened to my, I have a lot of experience, and I've heard people tell a lot of stories about the brainwave meditations, but I always share my own because they're my own personal. But I had a very stressful day once in my life, and everyone was pulling at me. You know those days where everyone's pulling at you and your brain is like going 100 miles an hour?
Oh, yeah.
And I put my theta tape in to listen to, and within about 5 minutes, I'd fallen asleep and slowed down and fell asleep. And within about 20 minutes, 30 minutes when the thing was done, mine bring you back up out of the theta back into alpha so that you're awake and alert. And I felt an amazing sense of well-being that I couldn't put my finger on, and it kept getting better and better and better and better as the day went along. And I thought, wow, I was really stressed out and putting out cortisol, and now I've replaced it with this feeling of I feel really rested and happy. And so that's why I'm just really excited about this particular technology. Is just amazing that we can do this for ourselves, Bernard.
It really is. And I think I discovered them, probably when I started doing what I do. And I myself found it was like meditating without effort. That's what I got out of it. It really was like a non-effort version of meditation because it really did draw you in.
Yes, it does, because you're basically mechanically shifting. Electronically, you're shifting. Your brain is electronic. So you're talking its language when you're telling it to do something like this with these meditations.
Oh, we have another question from Art Underground, and it has to do pretty much with what we're talking about. You talk about left and right brain to harmonize and work together. Have you heard of an ancient technique called POI?
Can you spell that?
POI? Or maybe it's just POI. And so what do you think of its ability?
That's what I thought you said. Well, that, all due respect, that's a Hawaiian food.
Yeah, as well, yes.
So repeat the question. It's a brain. What is it?
I guess it's a technique to harmonize the left and right brain.
Oh, I'm sorry, Art Underworld. I have not heard of that one. But I would, again, like to research that because I'm always wanting to know more.
Yeah, me too. I haven't heard of it myself either, and I thought I heard just about all of them.
Go ahead. If it's an ancient technique, it probably works. But again, do we have, and I'm not trying to discredit it, I'm just wondering if we have the time to learn it and how to do it. I'd like to learn more about that if somebody could tell me more.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love the idea of harmonizing the left and the right brain. I think that we've had several guests on. We had the author that talks about the James Olson has come on and spoken about the necessity of connecting the left and the right brain. And like you said, it seems that many of us are stuck in one hemisphere or the other.
We are.
Mostly, I believe it's the left brain that we're mostly stuck in, the linear, logical aspect of living. But what do you find as far as the necessity of the left and right brain harmonizing to begin to overcome negative thinking?
And they say Einstein had whole brain functioning. So that right there in a nutshell shows you the power of having all your brain put together and working right. I think that it's a necessity to overcome negative thinking because when you're working with a whole brain, you have more answers, you have more availability. Your brain is in a state of functioning on a better phase or a better plane of existence. So instead of coming from an emotional standpoint, where all of your decisions come from an emotional standpoint, or all of your decisions coming from a logical standpoint, you're able to integrate them, and you've built the highways between them, and they're really talking to each other. So every decision that you make is based on a whole brain function of, okay, this is equally emotional as it is intelligent and logical, and those are the best decisions that we can make in our life. So when you have that type of function, you're more able to go over the fear. You're more able to say, okay, I'm feeling the fear, but you know what? I'm going to stop it. So your emotional side says, I'm really fearful right now. But your logical side says, yeah, but you know what? We can work through this. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I just wanted to send a quick vocal note to Art Underground. I would love to have you call in, Art. Unfortunately, I would have to redo all my settings to allow myself to take calls. But if you could send me a link, I will go ahead and share it with Suzanne on the POI technique of meditation. Unfortunately, my Skype is set up to put people right into a voicemail if they call, so we can't take calls during the show. Anyway, Suzanne, let me ask you, as far as, and I know this is kind of I don't know what to call a lazy man's version of meditation, and or calling it a beginner's version of meditation. When I try to, or when I am teaching someone to meditate, the first thing I ask them to do is to how to breathe correctly. And also to focus on their breath. Is there a specific way that you also share with either the breathing technique and or the first thing they focus on?
I have them go to their favorite place, whether it be a chair in their mind. I'm not talking about in person.
Okay.
Because there's a physicalness to being in your favorite place, whether it be in the woods or the ocean or your chair or your couch or not necessarily with somebody, but if you have a favorite pet, that piece helps you calm down. I like to start there.
Wonderful, wonderful. And again, it helps them to relax, right?
Oh, absolutely. And what you'll find is they do start relaxing because their brain has changed just by shifting. Oh, you know what we should do is an exercise. Quickly. It takes
absolutely. If we got about 10 more minutes, so we definitely have time for an exercise. Go for it.
Takes 30 seconds. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about something. And what I'm going to show you is the power of your thoughts and why it's important for you to recognize what you're thinking about. So what you want to do right now is think about a problem. Just think about a problem. There is no answer to this problem. It's absolutely something that is stuck. It's making you feel a certain way. You don't like it. It's something that's unhappy in your life. And I just want you to think about it for about 5 seconds there. And there is no answer to this. Okay. So just hold on to that feeling for a second and just notice how you feel. Now, release it and say, okay, that problem is solved. It was a miracle. Wow. Just imagine that problem is solved. completely in the most beautiful way, that problem is gone. It's out of your life. And think of it totally in whatever happened. If you were out of work, now you have a job. If you were not in a relationship, now you have the best relationship out there. Whatever was wrong is totally right in your life. And think about that for a minute, or a second. Now, how do you feel, Bernard?
I feel like my chest opened up and I can breathe.
Ha! Aha! And did you have a sigh of relief or not?
Yes, absolutely.
Many people do. So what was happening for us and you on that? What was happening is, well, can you tell me what was happening before I explain it?
Well, for me, it was acknowledging, invoking a particular thought, allowing the feeling that the thought created, the emotion behind it, and then allowing that emotion and or thought to be resolved, which gave me a feeling of relief.
Okay. And so now you're vibrating that relief feeling.
Yep.
Yes. And so what else is happening is your mind is also, now the plasticity of your mind has learned right now that there is a way for you to solve problems. It's just learned. You've just created a way, very, very short path that you can solve a problem. But moreover, I want everyone to just acknowledge and see through this exercise that the power of our thoughts are on a physical level, or, you're thinking about it. But I thought it was very interesting that you said, I felt like my chest opened up. So that's a physical thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's also on a subconscious level, too, that we're holding on to things on a subconscious level. And so when we're holding tension in our bodies, we may be thinking thoughts on a subconscious level that we don't even know are there. So what you want to do next is you want to learn, once you start learning the meditation and you start releasing it on a physical level and you start getting your things better, you also want to figure out what you're doing on a subconscious level so that you can release those beliefs. And that's where it gets a little sticky, but it's possible to do because, again, your inner talk, your self-talk it's giving you all the clues you need. If you can figure out if you learn how to embrace it and learn how to listen to it in a certain way, which, like I said, is in the Effective Positive Thinking program, you can get down to these unconscious beliefs and then learn how to flip them into that relief kind of feeling.
And it's a great place to be.
Isn't it?
It's a great place to be. There's something to be said when you can let go of a tension. I mean, for me, it was just a minor tension that I invoked, something that's happening in my life that's caused me a little disharmony. So I thought of that for a few moments. I felt the anxiety built up, and then when you said, "Okay, it's been solved, it's done." And what for me is, and here's something that I feel that we can probably talk about for the last couple minutes before we wrap this up, is that so many of us, we can start seeing the result. Okay, we've learned to relax, we've learned to meditate, we've learned to start thinking positively, but we don't believe it. Like the whole,
Yep.
I call the too good to be true syndrome.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking, well, if somebody's saying, well, you're talking positive thinking here, bad thoughts, good thoughts. What's the difference? I was just thinking that same thing.
Right.
And do I have a minute for a quick story?
Yes, please. We got about 5. We have exactly 5 more minutes.
Okay. I just need a minute, I think. Because I like to this is my favorite story. I always tell this story because it's so neat. And the point is that there are a lot of subconscious things that we're holding on to that are saying, oh, it's too good to be true. But those are coming from that self-talk, oh, it's too good to be true, that we actually hear, is coming from those subconscious beliefs. So I'm going to use Dave as an example. Dave, it was a lumberjack, and he's in his 50s, really strong guy, lumberjack in Eureka, California, which is a woods, timberland. And he was a lumberjack all his life because he didn't believe he was smart enough to do anything else. So he relied on his body, which was very strong. But even as, gosh, now he's 60 something and he's very muscular. He's very in good shape. But what happened was he got hurt, so he couldn't work. Now, because he couldn't work, he lost his home, he lost his family, he lost hope, he lost everything because he couldn't work. His mind was locked in fear. All right. He started drinking again. Remember I said you get down to that basement, you start leading down a path and you have this negative thinking. Well, Dave was there. He was in a borrowed home. He had to get out. What was happening for Dave was his mind was locked in fear. He couldn't see any possibility for his life because he unconsciously absorbed negative beliefs from people around him all his life, the accidental programming. So when Dave became a client of mine, and we worked together with the program, but he also was a client. And what we did was I talked about what was going on for him. And he had money issues, power issues. It's not okay to have money. Rich people are bad, things like that. And a lot of the actual affirmations that are in the program that I gave him. And within a week, so he started listening to a subliminal audio. And you know how a dog whistle works, where you blow the whistle, the dog hears it, but you can't hear it?
Right, yep.
Well, the whistle is at a higher frequency. The subliminal audio is at a higher frequency, so you consciously can't hear them, but your mind does hear them. Gave Dave the subliminal affirmation audio for the negative beliefs about money that we all get in society. Within 1 week, he told me one of them verbatim. He said to me, he told me, blah, 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 blah. And I looked at him, I said, do you realize that's one of the affirmations verbatim on that tape I gave you? He said, no, I didn't know that. And he went on to basically release those beliefs because he wasn't fighting them. He wasn't saying, oh, that's too good to be true. He wasn't saying, oh, I don't believe that. It was going past that. And he actually got a job in one of the most prestigious clubs in America. I mean, we're talking former presidents. He's surrounded now by former people with power, people with money. He's making incredible money. I'm kind of jealous. Sometimes some of them I think, wow. And that's because he was able to get past that, oh, I don't think so. Oh, that's too good to be true. So when you're talking about positive thinking, there are different levels. And one level that you want to really go at is finding ways to get into your head things that you want to change without actually hearing them.
Oh, that's a great technique. Wow. It's almost like you're tricking yourself.
You are.
You have to sometimes, get around the ego. You got to sneak around that ego.
You are. And in the 50s, this subliminal, and I know your cause, I don't want to send any fuel to the fire, but
right.
A lot of times they used to use subliminal messaging in advertising.
Oh, yeah.
And the military apparently. Now, I can't confirm any of this. Rumors.
Right.
But subliminal advertising, subliminal get out there and do whatever you're going to do in the military. I mean, it's out there. It's out there because it's powerful.
Because it works. And I love it because a lot of people ask me, they're like, well, how come you like, spirituality? Why do you use esoteric techniques? I'm like, it's been used for thousands of years. And like you just said, not to add fuel to the fire, it's been used against society. We can use it to empower ourselves.
That's right. And
Yeah.
I have done that. This is what I'm all about.
Yeah.
Let's help ourselves build that. One audio that I have in the program is about building that self-acceptance and that confidence. And the other audio is about releasing the money beliefs.
Yeah.
Because these are things that we've picked up in society. It's not okay to be good. It's not okay to like yourself, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. Wow. Well, anyway, we're running out of time. We got about another minute left, but let me just ask you ever so quickly, if there was one first step that someone could do to start overcoming negative thinking, what would that first step be?
Give yourself permission. Really give yourself permission. And I hate to say journal because some people don't like that. Go for a walk. Just find out what is stopping you from helping yourself. Give yourself permission to explore. Don't be afraid. Just give yourself permission. And then start just start dreaming. Well, what if?
Exactly.
Well, what if? Because that starts opening doors for you. You'll attract something. You may attract some help somehow. You may attract something, and it'll start giving you encouragement of, wow. is something.
Yeah, and then the synchronicity kicks in and you're on your way. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Suzanne. Again, everybody, this is Suzanne Glover that we've been speaking with. And you can find out more about Suzanne Glover at effective-positive-thinking.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, Suzanne.
Thank you for having me, Bernard. My pleasure.
And next week, everybody, we have the author. We're going to be doing a special on eco-homekeeping, not using chemicals and keeping your house better organic cooking. We're going to be talking to author Billy Sharp live here. We'll see you next week. We love you. Bye-bye.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.